Hey everyone, welcome to the UFO Hub live stream. And today's guest is going to be Debra Kauble. And I'm very happy to welcome her for part 2 and to continue our conversation. But as always, great surprises happen. I found out that the report dropped today. And I wanted to get into that a little bit because it was very underwhelming, to say the least. So let me do some switching over here. So it actually dropped a few hours ago. And I have also the description, or actually in the description below the video, there's the link to this report that you can see yourself. It's actually only about 9 pages long, and I'm not going to read anything from it because I would like to actually get to Debbie and talk about some very exciting things, because the report is basically, once you get to the page, it says download the report. You can see that link right there, and it'll open up a PowerPoint, or I mean a PDF. And it basically says that they can register some physicality to the UAPs, basically using their different sensors that they have, whether it would be radar, infrared, electro-optical, weapon seekers, and visual observation. So, and basically they're saying they don't have proper ways of collecting data to make any kind of conclusions, and they need more funding. So it says it was supposed to be a preliminary report, and I'm hoping that there's more coming, or maybe in a sense that's just leaving an open door for more to come. And maybe something else happened until, between when this first came out and now. And I apologize if I'm behind, but all the way up till we going live, I was checking to make sure that there wasn't anything else, because this report that we're all anticipating, it was a whole whopping 9 pages, as I mentioned, and it's very very disappointing. But I guess if there's anything positive that can be drawn from this, is that they weren't poo-pooing. They were basically saying we're registering something. It has some national security concerns, and it does some very basically the performance and all that. They can't pinpoint it to any given adversary. They don't think it's one of the other countries, and so anyway, I don't know. I hope they come out with more. It's like I said, at least they weren't saying no like they have been for the past, I don't know how many, 70 plus years. And so maybe this is the beginning of much more to come. Maybe they'll just spoon feed it slowly over time, because maybe it has to be this way. For us, we're ready for full disclosure, but if they're going to start out with the rest of the masses, maybe this is where it needs to start. So I'm trying to look at it more from a positive point of view instead of just being negative about it. But then again, I've always mentioned to you guys, I've never really needed the government to confirm anything for me. That's why I started the show. That's why I talk to the people I talk to, because we have our own community, our own support group that basically had to be created because of this kind of evasion all the time, and never really kind of owning up to help their citizens with whatever has been going on. So anyway, so let me just check on things. So you can, in the description below, you can get this report yourself. It's very short. You can read it. So, okay, shifting back. All right, let me then, just without any further ado, welcome Debbie. Debbie, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, just fine. Thanks very much for being back on again. And you have some great news. What's been happening recently in your life?
Well, on Tuesday, my book became available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Kindle, and seems to be doing pretty good for a new author and a new listing or whatever they call it on Amazon. So
Right.
I'm really excited about that. I'm
Awesome.
hoping that when people read it, they'll realize that, I'm just a person. I'm not a writer, and I don't use fancy words. I write like I talk, and sometimes I butcher my own language. So forgive me if I don't sound very sophisticated sometimes, but it's just me. And
Right.
I'm just telling my story. So I'm really excited that, it took at least 10 years to get this put back together and expanded upon. And so one good thing came out of the 7 weeks that I was laid off because of COVID is that's when I finished this book. So
Right. Well, I'm very happy that that you told me, because when I got the message, I was like, "Hey, perfect," because I was looking to always schedule people out, and as always, everything happens in perfect timing. So, I guess before we start, what is your thought about this report?
You know, it's exactly what I thought it would be, which was a whole lot of not much. I guess I don't know if I might be a little jaded, or skeptical. But on the flip side, like you said, it didn't rule them out. I mean, you and I already know that if China or Russia had that kind of technology, we'd all be flying a different flag, you know? And so we already knew that. And the fact that they didn't rule out something else I think it's kind of a big deal. But like I told you earlier too, I found the timing of this drop quite interesting, considering what a busy news day it was today. You know, between the verdict in Minnesota and all the stuff coming out of New York State. You know, the news channels and also local news is just hopping, and nobody has even one time mentioned this report on the news, at least not that I've seen. So I think that was not an accident. And I was actually expecting it. What is today's date? Okay, 25th. Yeah.
Yeah, 25th.
Yeah. I was kind of expecting it today, but yeah. Anyway, so we'll see. Hopefully more will come. They definitely didn't rule it out. So that's encouraging.
Right.
I just hope they continue to talk about it and be open and forthright about it. Because, you know, this isn't 1940 something like when during Roswell, you know, the first day or two, people reported the UFO debris and they had pictures of it and everything. And all of a sudden it was a weather balloon. You know, they kind of shoved the toothpaste back in the tube, but I don't think they can do that this time. So we'll see what happens. I'll remain cautiously optimistic.
Right. Well, I'm not quite understanding some of the. I just want to address a few things that were just brought up before we continue, Debbie. I hope you don't mind. So, obviously, on Wednesdays is the only time we do call-ins where some of you can share your stories. But of course, right now we're simultaneously casting to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and also voice only on Telegram. And so you can listen there, but you can also log in, and when it's time for question and answers, which we might be going into sooner than later, log in, raise your hand, and you'll be able to talk to and ask the question of Debbie yourself. So don't be shy. Log in right now. It'll be, maybe another, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, who knows however long it takes for us to cover a few things. And then we'll be able to do the Q&A. So if you don't have it downloaded yet, download it on your phone or the computer. Simply either go to the description box below where it says Telegram group, and you can click on that, or just do a search for UFO Hub, and you'll find a group. And there's a UFO Hub voice chat going on right now, and join it. So anyway, regarding the report, I've just covered it a little bit earlier today, and there's not much to report. So I also have the link of the report in the descriptions as well. Check it out. It's only 9 pages long, and I've given you my comments earlier, and you can kind of read it and make up your own mind. So anyway, so Debbie, what is it? What is it basically? What is it like for you from all this time from the initial, when we did our first part and you gave a great detail of your background story and regarding intruders, and now you have your second book out. What is it like living in this bizarre kind of alternate universe that very few are familiar with?
Well, first of all, I think more people are familiar with it than we realize, because I think most people don't talk about it, and rightly so, I suppose. Although times have changed, it's a lot different now than it was 30-some years ago, that's for sure. But I've always tried, all I've ever wanted is to be normal and have a normal life. In my opinion, and I can only speak for myself, but honestly, I can never imagine anybody wanting to be famous for something like this. I had to be convinced and talked into even letting Bud write Intruders, well, my whole family did. It wasn't just about me, although I was the central figure. But, I had to think about it for a while. I had kids. And it's funny, and like I mentioned to you, I got an email not too long ago after I was on Howard Hughes' broadcast over in the UK, but you could hear him from everywhere. I got an email from a guy here in my hometown that lives about 10 minutes from me. And he said, can you imagine my surprise when I realized that this woman, you, who had been through all this for so long, lived 10 minutes from me. All of these years I've been interested in the subject and done and read and everything. I had no idea who you were or how, you know, how close you were to where I lived. And I wrote him back and said, thanks. That means what I did worked because my plan worked because I had kids to raise. My number one priority has always been them and then my job. This is not my job. The UFO stuff that, and when I talk, and the book that I wrote and the book I wrote with my sister, this is not my job. I've worked since I was 15 and a half years old at real jobs, regular jobs, hard jobs, factory jobs, you know, all kinds of work, and a hairdresser on top of that for 35 years, which is hard work. Um, and I just wanted my kids to have a normal life as much as they could amongst all the weird stuff that happened around all of us. So I would avoid I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to talk about it around people I worked. I didn't want talking about it. Like I would only accept speaking things that were outside of my area, you know, because I was protecting my family, my kids. Before Intruders was even written, we had strange people come to our house on several different occasions, messing around in my mom and dad's backyard, messing around in the front yard. And then when I lived on my own with my kids, I had 2 different occasions where strangers came up and knocked on my door, which it scared me, you know. So I didn't want to be known for this stuff. I just wanted a normal life and I wanted it to go away. There were many times in my life and I would think to myself, just stop, just leave me alone. I don't want this. Why is this happening to me? And, you know, I would try to back myself out of it all and just try to, you know, I not just kind of disappear for a while. But something always drop kicked me right back into it some way or another. And I finally realized, you know, after a while that, well, this is just my life. This is who I am. It's a part of me and I might as well just embrace it because it is what it is and it's not going to go away. And once I realized that, once I adopted that kind of attitude about it, I started really feeling, you know, a lot better and a lot stronger about it. And like I said, times have changed. Back when I first came out publicly with the weird stuff that happened to me and my family, nobody talked about this. And if you did, people looked at you like you were absolutely nuts. And I didn't blame them because I felt this. I mean, I felt like if I hadn't seen and experienced some of those things, I wouldn't believe it either. But now you can go to Walmart and buy t-shirts with aliens on them. People pay hundreds of dollars to be taken somewhere to try to call them in, you know, and it's just like there's been this huge shift in attitude about the whole thing, you know, and I'm glad for that. I'm glad for my kids and my grandkids, you know, it'll make it easier for them, but I mean, I'm getting old.
Right. Well, you know, I just want to make a quick point regarding something that I often think about, and I mention it to people. So, you know, it's almost like this: experiencers and researchers, they have this unfair burden of proof regarding these different subjects like aliens and UFOs and all these other things. There's so many people like, well, where's your proof? Where's this? Where's that? It's like, hold on one minute. I almost cussed there for a second. You know, like sometimes it does get me, you know. So you have researchers that are fully funded regarding a subject that is deemed, you know, worthy of investment and money, and then they go out there, find out what they need to find out, and they, you know, however many years that funding goes, they come back, they can present whatever they found, you know, and then you have these people like you and I and pretty much everyone in the UFO field that I know that's been kind of boots on the ground and just kind of doing their own homework, trying to figure out what this is about. But after going to work, after paying your bills, after taking care of family, after, making sure insurance is paid, after, everything else has been covered, oh, and then with, the 2, 3 hours that are left of the waking day and the research that we might do, it's like, how dare you not have have answers for us, and therefore we don't believe you, at least in the very beginning. Now, of course, it's shifted quite a bit and people are more curious, but I felt like it was a unfair a burden on someone like me and everyone else to just immediately spill everything out, show me what you know. Otherwise, I'm not going to waste my time with this silly thing called UFOs, and I'll go about my business. At least that's what I felt like it was going on with people in the beginning.
Well, yeah, and it used to make me so angry when people say there's no proof, there's no hard evidence. I'm like, hello, did you see my backyard? You know, I had the mark in the yard that was there for 2 years, and snow melted off of it for the first year. I had independent witnesses of neighbors on all three sides of mom's house. Mom was also involved in it too. It wasn't just me. And other experiences that I've had have involved other people, some that I knew, some that I didn't know at the time. But because of this, I met them. I have all the little medical records that I managed to get from my old doctor back in the day. I mean, I was my biggest skeptic. I had to live with this crazy stuff. Ooh, I wanted to cuss just then. But I had to live with this craziness.
No, you can. You can. I just try not to because I want to keep it positive, because sometimes I realize I like to cuss like a sailor, but people don't necessarily associate that with the normal talk. So I avoid it for everyone else that might get their feelings
hurt. I'm a factory girl. So, yeah. I mean, I worked in a factory for 15 years. I heard that stuff like butter, right. But anyway, I was my own biggest skeptic. Like when the stuff happened in '83 in the backyard that left that mark, I'm the one that called the agricultural agent for Indiana, at the Hunt University, one of the universities. I'm the one that called the gas company. I'm the one, I tried to figure out every possible way this could be not what I thought it was. When I finally did meet Bud and I went to New York, and he took me for testing at the hospital. I think it was at Columbia University Hospital. I can't remember because it's been 30 years and I'm old, but it's written down somewhere. But I mean, they did an EEG on me where they checked my brain waves. They did a CAT scan of my brain or some kind of x-ray with a dye in me. To see if I had brain tumors or had epilepsy or anything weird going on with my brain. I had 6 hours of psychological testing, some verbal and some written. And I remember telling the guy during the testing, it's okay if I'm crazy. If you need to tell me that I'm crazy after all this, I'm good with that, because I know they make pills for that, and then I'll just be happily taking a pill and it'll go away. I mean, I tried every way to explain away all the stuff that's happened to me. And I continue to do that. When I got involved with MUFON later as an investigator, I mean, part of that was for me to try to understand what was going on with me and my family and try not to be afraid of it. The way I deal with things that scare me is to face them head on and learn as much about them as they can, because I feel like knowledge is power. And so I became an investigator for MUFON for 10 years here in Indiana, and I learned a lot that way too. And then when I went towards the paranormal research part, I learned as much about that as I could. And I found that like 95% of the time I could debunk anything, that I came up with when I did investigations. I could figure out an explanation for it. That was my goal, but it's that few percentage of stuff that I couldn't that kept me doing it. And, but so people don't like I said, I can only speak for myself. I know a lot of different kind of people out here in the UFO community with lots of different personalities, lots of different stories and all that. I can just speak for myself. I'm just an old girl from Indiana that never went anywhere until, you know, I met Bud, and just had this weird life that I thought was normal, because when I was a little kid, I thought that's just how everybody lived. It wasn't until I got up and went to school that I realized, you know, I probably shouldn't talk about this because people are looking at me like I'm crazy. So, but yeah, so people don't really realize that I didn't want to be famous for this. I didn't come looking for this. I was born into it,
Right.
and I've done my best to try to debunk it, explain it, and sometimes hide from it, you know. So, but it is what it is. And so now that's why I wrote books. People have asked us so many questions over the years. And I feel akin to so many people out there. They're like my people, you know, my family. And I'm fortunate. I feel I'm blessed because I've had the support of my family, my friends, most of my coworkers, even some of my bosses, neighbors. I've been very fortunate because most people like me don't have that. And so I felt like I wanted to, you know, pay it forward and pay it back, and let people like me out there know they're not alone, and I don't think you're crazy, you know. And if you want to talk to me and tell me what's going on, you know, I might not have any answers for you. I don't even have a lot of answers for myself, but I'll listen. And, you know, so that's why I wrote the books that I've written.
Right.
And
Well,
debunkers,
go
look,
ahead.
Philip Klass wrote a whole bunch of nasty stuff about my mom and me in a couple of his books. Do you remember Philip Klass? And I actually had the
I know of him.
opportunity
I
to
don't think
confront.
I've met him.
Oh, he's anybody's been in the UFO community for as long as I have knows who Bill is. But I mean, he was like the king of skeptics. And he would write these ridiculous books, and in one of these books, he wrote some just absurd stuff about my mom and me. But the thing was, he never talked to us. I never talked to him. He never asked to interview us. He didn't know anything about me other than what he just made up, you know, so that he could write a book about me and try to debunk my stories. And I saw him in Florida one time at a conference because he used to like to hang around there. So I approached him, and he knew who I was because for 2 or 3 times when I'd come up to him, he'd like run away. And I finally got him cornered. And I said, I just would like to ask you something, sir. I would like to ask why you wrote those things about my mom and me in your book when you never bothered to talk to me. If you'd like to sit down and talk to me, I would be more than happy to sit down and answer any question that you have. But if you don't want to do that, I would really appreciate it if you don't write nasty things about me and my family in your books. Oh my God, he stumbled all over himself, you know, and tried to be so gracious. People were starting to stand around and watch. The next morning, when I woke up and came out of my hotel room, there was a stack of books at the door. All of them were his books, every book he wrote, and all of them were inscribed to me. And they all had the nicest things written in them, like your mother raised a well, you know, spoke a really nice, good woman, all this, and wanted me to have dinner with him. And I'm like, no, I don't think so. But thanks for the free books. But, you know,
Right.
so these skeptics, they can say whatever they want, but until they actually come and talk to me, I'm not going to believe anything they say about anybody because I know how they've done me.
Right. Well, Debbie, I wanted to ask you. So during this time that you had time to write and helped you finish your second book during the lockdowns, can you maybe go a little bit into what you were reflecting on, what you were gonna kind of going through as you were putting all that down?
You know, it was weird because I hadn't I hadn't looked at my other book um, in years. I hadn't looked at it, I hadn't picked it up, hadn't read it. I mean, I'm fortunate to have some copies of it because the tornado that usually it destroyed almost everything I own, but I had some. I've got one copy here of the abducted story that my sister and I wrote, and it's all wet, you know, from the tornado, but you can still read it. Um, what I did was I took my half of that book and I wove it because the stories are not going to change. I mean, they are what they are. So I took that part of my book and I wove it into this new one. So my sister's stuff is not in there. My older sister, who had chapters in my first one, hers is not in this one. She's mentally and physically unable to, she's got really bad dementia. And so this is my original stories and new stuff. So when I'm reading through this stuff, because I had to read through every single word of it as I rebuilt all the squirreled up file folders because they were a disaster. One format from 1993 doesn't transfer to Word, Microsoft Word 7 very nicely. So that took about 5 years, literally.
Were you having errors?
Oh my God. You could read one chunk of this of text would be readable, and then the rest would be like 20 pages of characters that made
Like,
no sense
I
at all.
see.
It was a disaster.
Did you reach out to someone to maybe help you out, or did you just pretty much try to rewrite it?
I just basically rewrote it because I didn't know what to do. I'm not smart that way, and I didn't really know anybody that could. So, in doing that, I had to reread it basically, and when doing it, I'm thinking, oh my God, I forgot about that. I forgot that happened. You know, it's weird how 35 years or 45 years or 50 years passes and things just fade, you know. So I'm grateful that I wrote all this stuff down. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to do this continuation, the second part of it in this new one, because I'm not getting any younger. You know, my dad had dementia. My sister has dementia. I mean, God forbid that could be my fate. I pray not, but you know, none of us knows or has control. So I wanted to make sure I got this out of my head before it got lost, you know, and none of us gets out of here alive anyway. I wanted, before I leave this planet, to have it down for my granddaughter and her daughter, and, you know, my future family, so they know me and they know where they come from and who they come from. So, and rereading this and rewriting that, some of the old anxieties would come welling up, you know, even though I feel like I've overcome a lot of the fear that I initially had and trauma, and I have, but some of it still kind of bubbled up. There were a couple nights, you know, after working on a particularly weird few pages or chapters that I had a hard time falling asleep. So, I mean, it was kind of stressful, you know, to go over that again and remember that. And like I said, I'd read something, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I forgot that, you know? So it was weird.
Well, so just real quick before we continue, welcome everyone. For those who are watching right now, you can pretty soon here we're going to go into some Q&A, and so you can use Telegram to basically go to UFO Up group, join the voice chat, and you will be able to ask questions of Debbie herself. And if not, if you're shy and don't want to be on the phone, simply in the chat, if you can put 3 stars before your question, they'll pop out at me, and it basically tells me that's the question for the guest. So anyway, so just want to put that out there, and I want you to give you a chance to get ready. So Debbie, regarding well, when it comes to these different, you know, experiences, I know you were saying something about, you know, when you reread things, you know, you remember, because there's so much detail that happens and it's initially very fresh in the mind, and you just want to kind of regurgitate it as fast as you possibly can. But I noticed that, you know, myself, as time goes on, you know, I would be because sometimes it's been like 10, 15 years, I would be like, oh, wow, how could I forget about this particular experience? You know, and have you been kind of keeping a journal on the side to just kind of write it down so that you can kind of peacefully move on with your life without having to worry about what other details you might forget out there?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I still write things down to this day. That's what the whole first book was, pretty much journals and entries, you know. And then the second one, you know, there's a lot of journal entries moving forward from when the first one was done, here in the more recent past. But yeah, absolutely. I write everything down. I mean, I have notes to make myself remember to make a note. I have a little notepad on my kitchen island every day and I check it and my calendar, and so I'm like that anyway. And yeah, so whenever something weird happens, I always write it down, always. And, it's funny. There's so much little stuff that's so weird, but it kind of drifts out of my memory after a while. I mean, there's just been an entire lifetime of it. I can't remember all of it. I don't have that many folds in my gray matter for all that stuff, but there are big things. The biggest and most traumatic things will stick with me, like the June 30, 83 incident, which everybody knows about. And the same deal with like when I saw the Challenger explode, I remember what I was doing and where I was at. I think it's when the more traumatic and impactful something is to it, the more it stays in my mind, closer to my conscious level where I can remember it easily. But then there's like 50 million weird little things that just, you can only remember so much. So that's why I write it all down. And I encourage anybody that's going through a weird period in their life. I find writing to be very therapeutic. I mean, because sometimes when you write something down, you're feeling one type of way, right? But then after you write it down and then you look at it and you actually read the words, then you get to feeling another type of way, So it kind of gives you a different perspective on things. And sometimes I can figure stuff out if I do that. And then it becomes a non-issue anyway. So, as far as the weird stuff goes, but absolutely, I am the note girl.
Right.
People give me notepads and sticky notes and pens for presents.
Right. Well, Debbie, before we go into some questions, I'm going to wait till some of them come in, but I do want to ask you about, and of course, now that I want to ask you, it slips my mind. Oh, regarding, so since last time, I can't remember if I asked you in the show previously, have you been recently having other recent encounters, or are you still pretty much kind of reflecting on what had happened at that initial moment?
Since I've talked to you last?
No, it's
Is that what
just
you
in
said?
general, but from now till, let's say, in the past 5 years.
I've had I don't think I've had anything physical, but I've definitely had some strange dreams, mostly dreams, like the lucid, vivid dreaming. And it almost seems like I'm going somewhere else when I have these dreams sometimes. Or it's a quick dream that's a message dream, or it's something about it's with someone I know who's passed away. Um, so it's been stuff like that. I guess you could call that more, I don't know, psychological stuff or psychic stuff, maybe if but not anything physical like the missing time and things like that. Not that I consciously recall anyway.
Right. Yeah, I wonder if for some of us that initially just happens to have that, leave that imprint to where then it gets you to the point to where now you've written 2 books about it, to kind of chronologically put together what it is that happened and to convey that out there, to kind of tell a story in a cohesive way, and because I know some of some of my other friends, and when we talk about these different things, it all depends. Sometimes it's like it draws back because there's something going on in their lives, so they just kind of things kind of pull back with all kinds of weird experiences, whether it be aliens, ghosts, whatever. But then sometimes once that's finally done, it kicks back up. It's almost like they know, okay, you're busy doing something, so we'll give you that break, but then it kicks back up. And at least
I
that's something we've
know.
been discussing. I don't know what your opinion is on that.
It's funny because I've noticed that myself. I've told you I've gotten mad. I'm like, leave me alone, please. Life is too hard right now. I can't do this. Like when I was getting divorced, although weird stuff happened then. But like after my husband died, it was so traumatic that his death was a suicide, and I witnessed it. And I was just broke. I was just broke for a while, and it was very important that I not come unglued because I had 2 teenagers that needed me, you know, and thank God I had them and I had my family. But it was that was at one point in my life where I was like, just go away. I can't even deal with this right now. I'm about to be broke here. And it got totally silent. Nothing happened for other than paranormal stuff began to happen, you know, with my late husband immediately. But the alien or UFO stuff stopped. And also, immediately after I had my hysterectomy, everything kind of got real quiet for a couple of years after, about a week after my hysterectomy, when we had some weird stuff happen on the farm with my house guest and her daughter and my late husband. But like I said, about a week after that, it got real quiet. It seems like the really traumatic and stressful parts of my life, things would kind of back off for a while, and then they would come back, you know. Or like I said, something would drop kick me back into it. I wanted to be more involved in my community and stuff like that. You know, I joined the Red Cross. I went down to New Orleans after Katrina and Rita, you know, and I was doing stuff like that. But I was kind of afraid that people would find out about this stuff and then they wouldn't let me do it anymore. You know, they would figure out some way to make me stop. So I would try not to. Just, you know, those are all the times in my life when I'm like, get away from me. I don't want to talk about this. Just stop, you know. But then something would happen and bam, here I am right back in the middle of it again. And it always wasn't just me. It was me and, you know, my friend or me and the neighbors or somebody. If everything that ever happened to me was always only just me, I would seriously think that there was something wrong with me. But it seems like, you know, it's always involved other people. So I guess that's probably a good thing. I don't know.
Well, it's almost something that's kind of gives you a little self check to keep you sane. Because if no one else can see
Uh,
what you're talking about, you know, I can definitely see how that would be troublesome. You know, I'm at
yeah.
least, I mean, where we live is very isolated. So at least I have my wife to be that other observing counterpart, you know, and not that I, you know, need that, but it's just kind of interesting to could just be like reflecting back and forth to each other. It's like, hey, how did this come across to you? You know, this is what happened to me, you know, witness, you know, not witness it, but going through it. And then, you know, from her end, you know, back and forth, just having a conversation, it helps. It's kind of like being our own, you know, psychiatrist in some way, just to have
Yeah.
you know, friendly face that can listen and not be judgmental about it.
Yeah. I mean, ch- I, I found out with not just with this stuff, but with other traumatic events in my life, I found that talking about it, getting it out there in the universe, hearing it with my ears and not just in my head was good therapy for me. It helps. It helps. It doesn't seem like it will, but it did. I mean, for me, it did. I can speak for myself. Sorry, I'm distracted here. I just got a tornado warning pop up on my phone. I'm looking at my weather radar. It's just a little bit
Well, when you
not
fly
quite
away,
here
I'll know
yet.
what happened. It wasn't
You know
aliens.
how I am.
Right.
Seems like I'm a
Well,
tornado magnet.
right. Well, I guess where you live, you already mentioned it's kind of very tornado prone area because it wasn't your house destroyed a while back because of a tornado?
That was the third tornado that I've been in my life. The first one was when my son Robbie was a baby, and it didn't hit our apartment building, but it jumped over the building and picked up a semi on I-70 and spun it around. We were in the stairwell on the bottom floor of the building. The second time was at my mom and dad's house when the day after we moved in there, all of my stuff, everything I owned was in my van, and a small tornado came through their part of town and twisted a 65-foot beech tree off its trunk, the stump, and impaled my van with it and destroyed. Also, part of it impaled my mom's car and destroyed everything I owned in the van. So I lost everything I owned that time. And then in 2013, a tornado came through my town and totally destroyed about 50 or 60 homes. And my town is a small town, about 25,000 people. My house was the only house on the street that was flattened. Other people had, roof damage, shingles, siding, trees damage, junk everywhere, but their houses were still standing. My house was flattened and I was in the closet, but
Wow.
I got dug out of the debris by the fire department and I pretty much didn't have a scratch on me, although I couldn't close my eyes for 3 weeks because I could hear that sound. So yeah, when a tornado warning goes off, I'm looking at it.
Right,
And it's
right.
funny because, I always wanted to be a meteorologist when I was a kid. And I would have gone to college. Purdue has a great meteorology, program there. But I got pregnant.
Oh,
I
wow.
was and got married young, and so that kind of wrecked that. And
Well, I
I
certainly am not going to fault you for at least looking now at your phone for that reason. It's a very valid reason to do.
I
Because
think
I
it's
know
going to
I'm,
go north of me. I'm looking at the radar, and it's pretty nasty, actually. There's quite a large hook, but I think it's going north of where I'm at right now. So I think I'm all right, but I will be keeping an eye on it. If you see me run, grab my phone out of the blue, you'll know why. I think
right.
I'm okay.
So, and so would you be if there was a let's say an invitation that might have come with you your way from these different conferences going on, would you be interested to just get back on on the road again and do in-person speaking?
Yes. Because, for 15 years, I only had 1 week vacation. It was extremely difficult to work, a whole year with 1 week's vacation and try to do that too. And my job was the most important thing that pays the bills, not this stuff. And so, yeah, now I'm retired for one thing. It's like everything kind of dovetailed in my life. The book was finished. I'm retiring. I'm not working now. And I'm in probably the best health I've been in probably for years after this recent couple surgeries I ended up having to have in January. And so it's like everything kind of came together in this beautiful little perfect storm and now is the time to finish this. Come on, girl. It's like something was pushing me. And then look what started to open up, mainstream media started picking up all these different people are waking up to this and realizing, hey, there's something to this. And it just seems like it's all dovetailed for me. So yes, and I would, um, I'm hoping that once, COVID is kind of in the rearview mirror and people are more comfortable uh, gathering and having these conferences again, that I will be able to go and do some. I like to go meet people like me. That's the best part of that. That's what I love the most about those. That hour I'm on the stage is nerve wracking and makes my stomach hurt because I'm not a public speaker and I'm self conscious, and plus look what I'm talking about. But it's after it's over with, to get to meet so many people like me and who've had weird experiences, and that's the best part for me, and I feel I miss that. So I'm hoping that yes, I'll have opportunities for that in the future.
All right, well, that's good to know. I'm glad you do. All right, well,
Mhm.
I guess I figured let's start with some questions. And there's one that came in from Michael J. Schumann, and says, for those of us who haven't read Bud Hopkins' book or your first book, what year was your last encounter? Were they typical Grace or another alien type? Could you please give us a little background? So I guess maybe we should have covered that. I always assume people are going to watch the first part because there's a lot that you have to cover over it. I didn't want to regurgitate, but maybe for those that are new, maybe it is a good question to just reiterate a little bit.
I'll try to do the quickest synopsis of it. It's hard for
Okay.
me to do. Um, but I've had strange things happen to me my whole life. What people consider paranormal, um, ghost, poltergeist activity, things like that. And then I've had a dream in '78 where these two gray aliens, basically the little gray guys with the big eyes, came in my room with this black box. And I was couldn't wake my husband up, and I was terrified. But at some point during being terrified, I suddenly felt calm, and I remember asking them what the box was, and they said that when I saw it again, I would remember it, and I would know how to use it. So, and then they just kind of slid back away from me and disappeared. I remembered the whole thing. I told my husband about it. I was hysterical. I called my mom and told her about it the next morning. After they left, I fell asleep. And then when I woke up, it's like right there. It wasn't, I didn't have any hypnosis to remember any of that. I always remembered all that. And then June 30, 1983 was like the major, that's what Intruders centers around, that particular thing, which is a big long thing that went on all night. I was missing for about an hour and a half or 2 hours, and I still don't remember more than maybe about 15 or 20 minutes of it. It also involved my mother and my friend and neighbor behind me, whom I was going to sew with that night. It left a mark in the yard that lasted for about 2.5 years. Snow melted off of it that first year. It damaged the power lines and the cable coaxials from my dad's ham radio antenna into the house. I was sick. It damaged my eyes, and I had to go to the hospital the next morning because they were swollen shut. And then when I was in my 30s, I was diagnosed with severe cataracts and had to have my lenses replaced when I was in my 40s. And I remembered from that night when I was coming out of the garage at my mom's house that something hit me in the chest like a ball of light, and I couldn't move, but I could feel like every molecule of my body vibrate inside and out. And I know my eyes were closed, but I could still see this light. It was so intense. And then after that intensity waned, I realized I was no longer in the doorway of the garage, but out on the patio. And that's when I saw this egg-shaped, small craft, for lack of, I don't even know what you call it. I don't think there were 6 small child-sized individuals in the backyard, and they all moved towards this thing and went into it. And I don't think 6 of anybody could fly anywhere, and this thing was small, so I really don't know what it was. I mean, I know I'm sounding squirrely because if I go detail by detail like my mind wants to, then it drags on forever. It was an intense experience, and it left me damaged. And eventually the dog that was out there with me that night had to be put down. Afterwards, I think I had a nervous breakdown, but that's when I reached out. And that's the experience that propelled me to reach out to Bud Hopkins, because I had read his book, Missing Time, a few months back, parts of it. And I knew there was an address in the back of the book, so I could write to him. So I did. And that's how everything started from there. He came and did 3 years of investigation and research. More and more things came out, not just about me, but my sister and my mother. And so
the second part of the question was, were they typical grays or another alien type?
Yeah, they were. 90% of the contact I had is with typical gray looking things, although I have had also experiences with people that look like humans, human looking. Now my older sister had experience not with the grays, but with, she called the mantis type, like a praying mantis. I don't recall having seen those, just my sister.
Right. You know, I've heard many stories, and I've done many different interviews where people also recall that I don't know what details your sister might have given you, but their impression was like there's supposed to be I can't even pronounce the word right now. Geneticists, dealing with genetics. I'm sorry. I feel like I don't know why I'm having a hard time with that word. Anyway, so what I wanted to ask you, I have another question in over the phone. I couldn't remember if you said okay or no regarding that.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay, good deal. All right, Kenny, I'm gonna unmute you. Go ahead, unmute yourself, and please ask your question.
Yes, I was wondering, have you ever had anyone steal your ideas, or have you ever met an angel?
Have I ever
Thank you,
had
Kenny.
anybody steal my ideas or met an
Right.
angel? I don't know if I've ever had anybody steal my ideas. If I have, I'm not aware of it. Um, and has I met an angel? I believe I have. When my husband died, of course, I had to go to the hospital. For him, he committed suicide in at our house, and so I had to take him to the hospital and be pronounced dead by a doctor. I was in that little room nobody wants to be in, and I was by myself. And a man came in who was dressed like a priest, and he got down on his knees in front of me, which I thought was odd. Told me that my husband did not make it, and that he would pray with me. And I said, "You're a priest. You tell me. Will he go to hell because he killed himself?" And this guy said, God calls everyone home in different ways. If it wasn't his time to go, the gun would have misfired. And so that gave me a lot of peace and comfort. And then so like a week or two later, I went back to the hospital because I wanted to find this guy and thank him for those words. And when I described him and told the lady what he looked like and everything, everyone at the hospital said, nobody comes here who fits that description. That doesn't sound like
Wow.
anybody that any of us know. I hadn't told him what he'd said. I just said I wanted to thank him because he was kind to me. And they said, nobody works here that is anywhere remotely like that. And so I left and I thought, that was an angel who came to me in my time of need. I feel that strongly.
Great, thank you for that. So Pauline B is asking, does Deborah know the reason why the aliens have interest in her?
I do not. That's a question that I've been asking ever since I've been asking questions. There are theories that it's something genetic, and it is a fact that my mother was adopted and had, so she didn't know a lot about her real family, her birth family, and had a strange experience when she was a child. So I don't know if, it's because of my mother that there was interest in me and my sister. And it's funny because it seems to be the females in the family, not my brother doesn't. My brother swears up and down doesn't have anything like this. But me, my sister, my mother, and I'm kind of think maybe my granddaughter may have had something happen, although I don't really want to think about that. So,
Okay. Tammy Frazier is asking, what does Deb think the ETs are making human hybrids for?
at the end of the day, I don't really know. I can guess. I can have opinions. And I felt like someone has actually maybe at some point said it was good. It was a good thing because it was going to help us humans. And it kind of led me to believe that they were actually coming from our future and were coming back to correct something or change something to change the future, but that's just my thoughts and theories. I don't have anything that I can, prove that with. And it's flexible. I'm open because, like I said, at the end of the day, I don't really know for sure.
Sorry, I'm just sidetracking myself a little bit, trying to make sense of these questions. I wish people would take just a little bit more time spelling things out properly. But this one is from Pauline again, asking, does she believe that there was a pre-life agreement with the ETs?
Other people have asked me that, and I've heard other people talk about that. Obviously, I've heard everybody talk about all kinds of stuff over the last 30 years. I don't know for sure, but I can say that I have when I was younger, I had memories of like before I was born, if you can figure that. Dreams, I guess I had it before I was born, where I would say, I'm going to have kids. I'm going to be a mother. I will be divorced. I think I'll be a widow too. I'm going to do this kind of job and I'm going to live here. I remember all that. And my mom told me one time, after I moved into the big farmhouse with my late husband before he passed away, and I remember my mom and I sitting on the front porch, and she says to me, look at this house. When you were a little kid, you used to tell me that you were going to live in a big white house with a green roof and a green porch swing. And look where we're at right now. And I'm like, really? Did I do? Because I didn't remember that, but she told me that. So, I mean, there might be something to that. I'm open-minded. It wouldn't surprise me based on things I have dreamed about.
Right. This one is not so much a question, just more of a statement. Nick says, Deb is a really cool chick. Can you let her know that?
Well, thank you. I've been called a cool chick in 40 years.
Ida Hernandez is asking, did the aliens know of your health issues and offer to heal you? I've heard other abductee stories about aliens healing them. Thank you.
I have heard other people, and I know other people that have had experiences and that have had experiences where they were healed. And at one point, both my sister and I had vague memories of being told that if something, fatal ever happened to us, all we had to do was just go somewhere and ask for help and we would be healed. That didn't happen for her, obviously. And she's in a nursing home after multiple strokes and things. But, and I've had a lot of health issues, and some of them I feel may be connected to my contact, but I don't think it was intentional. So I would like to put out there to the universe, feel free to come and fix, what I still got left going on here. I won't argue with you about that. So, but yeah, I do know people that's had that. It would be nice.
Right. Well, of course, because I know Dolores Cannon's work, what she did is basically past life regressions, and a lot of people come in with ailments, and she would always tell them, not everyone can be healed because there's certain things they're needing to learn, and that's such a hard thing for people to understand too. They always just
Yeah.
want it out, not realizing it's there for a reason and for a purpose, and however painful it is to have to understand why you have it. Whatever that dis-ease. I love the play on words. Whatever that disease is,
Yeah.
it's there for you to try to understand it.
Right.
Let me see. Polina again asking, if not too personal, is Deborah blood type O negative? Thanks.
Actually, I am A positive. My mother was A negative and my father was O positive. So I don't know how they mixed to get me, but and I know
Oh,
their
wow.
blood
Yeah,
types
that
because
is.
I was with them on their medical stuff, before they passed away. So, but I'm A
Right.
positive.
Yeah, I know it's I don't want to sound too silly regarding that. I thought at least you get from one or the other parent's blood type, but not make a new one altogether. That's interesting. Maybe
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
normal thing and I just don't know. I'm gonna have to look that up. It's very rare that I'm not too familiar with something like that. So
I'm not either. I have no clue.
right. Well, because a lot of times people ask about that, specifically about that O negative connection, because I know
Yeah.
I'm O positive, and I don't know personally because I've known people that have different blood types. So uh, there seems to be a lot of inquiry regarding that from people. They want to know and try to connect the dots and see if there's some kind of pattern there, because it seems like if I just based on all the people I've talked to and specifically experiencers, I mean they run the gamut, regarding blood types. So I don't know that that the O negative is necessary for contact.
Yeah, I don't, no, I don't think so. And, I actually even remember in a dream years ago, one of the things I'd written down that I was told was that all the answers that we're looking for, we can find in our blood. But I don't think it was in reference to the blood type. I think it was more in reference to the DNA, you know? So,
Right. So I have a question from Fab22. Says, Deborah, thank you for staying online whilst whilst the skies are about to while the sky is about to fall on your head.
yes. Oh, yeah.
Um,
I mean, I have PTSD from storms. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I actually see a therapist and take EMDR treatments for it. That's how traumatic it was. But
right.
I mean, I'm watching the radar and I just peeked out the window and I've just gotten a couple text messages from friends saying, "Do you know we have a tornado warning?" but
Right.
but the way I'm seeing it now, I mean, it seems like it's moving pretty northeast of me. So but thanks. Yeah,
Well, that's good. I'm glad you're
I'm a
not
little
in
bit
immediate
distracted,
danger.
but I'm still doing good. I'm trying to
Right.
keep a level head.
Well, I can imagine if you've been through something that traumatic and has that affected you, of course, your attention would be more on that. But thank you for staying on and doing this with us. But there's another question um, from Michael Schumann saying, Deborah, have your children had any abduction or paranormal experiences yet?
Yeah, my children are in their 40s. So, but when they were little, they did. Now, they don't like to talk about it. I actually don't talk about it with my older son. He's the father of my granddaughter. My younger son will still tell me when weird stuff happens, but it's never been anything dramatic. He might see something in the sky, or he might see something that he thinks is like paranormal activity, which he'll report to me that kind of freaks him out. When they were little, my oldest used to would talk about the little man in the closet who would come to get his brother. So what he told Bud, and I think he was maybe 4 or 5, and tried to draw a picture of him. He drew a picture of the little man, and then he drew a picture of E.T. Because E.T. E.T. phone home. I mean, because all the kids loved that movie and everything. And so, I mean, Bud was like, look, he can tell the difference between the little man in his closet and E.T. So that's interesting. But, screaming one time that there was a red spider crawling up the wall, and then being awakened by screams from my oldest son. And my youngest son was like passed out in the bed. He was probably only, I don't know, 3 or 4, just covered in blood, and it was smeared up the wall, coming out of his nose. I had to take him to the hospital, and they had to cauterize it. But the little guy's tiny little nostrils and big fat fingers, there's no way he stuck his finger up there and scratched his nose. So we don't know what happened there. Sorry, just peeking. But he.
To look outside.
So
Is it still pretty bright out?
Stuff, huh?
I saw you peeking outside to check on the
Was just
tornado.
peeking out the window. I heard some thunder, but it doesn't look that bad. I really think it's going to go more north of me. I'm going to make it go north. Go.
Good deal.
But so yeah, my kids have had stuff, but when they were little. And as far as my older son, anything now, he does not like to talk about it. He doesn't want to talk about it, and so I don't ask him out of respect because he's an adult. I have a granddaughter who is 14, and when she was about 5 or 6, for a period of about 6 months, she had horrible night terrors, and she told her father that some men with big heads were trying to get in her room and take her out of her window. And my son got furious with me. He called me up and he's like, "God damn it, Mom, why are you, what did you tell her? Blah, blah, blah." Because she used to spend every weekend with me. I'm like, dude, I didn't tell her anything. I have no idea where this is coming from. Even when there was stuff on TV that even remotely looked like there was like a commercial for alien stuff back then, I would flip the channel. We never talked about it. That was a rule we had when my kids were little, because we didn't, A, want to scare them, and B, want to contaminate any memory they may have with something. for later, so it was a rule. We didn't talk about it around the boys, and we didn't talk about it around my granddaughter. So this went on for several months, and then finally it stopped. Thank God. My son had to go to extreme measures. He made the anti-alien spray with air freshener and got her a radio and a nightlight and closed up her windows real tight and, all that stuff until she finally calmed down. And then she hadn't done it since then. Like I said, she's 14 now. But the funny thing is, well, I guess it's not funny, but I mean, she's a super smart kid, super duper smart, really going to be something special. And she's my little mini me. She kind of even looks like her Nene. But she was with me one day not too long ago, and we were watching TV, and the commercial for Ancient Aliens came on. And, I thought, okay, at this point, I'm not going to worry about changing the channel. She's 14. It's just a commercial. The airwaves are flooded with this stuff now, not like back then. And after the commercial was over, she turned around and looked at me and she said, Nene, do you believe in aliens? She don't know nothing about any of this really yet. And I just looked at her and said, yep, sure do. And she just looked at me kind of funny. And then she says, so do I. And I said, cool. She's like, yeah, cool. And that was it. That was the extent of our conversation. So,
Right.
I don't know whether she's had anything. I'm not going to ask her. Hopefully one day she'll feel comfortable and come to me. So.
That's something that's very interesting. I can't certainly say that everyone's like this, but I find it a majority of experiencer, including myself, and I hear that from you and many of my other friends. We don't talk to our children about it. It's not
Not
that we're
really.
trying to hide them. It's almost like when they're ready, they're going to ask us when it's time, and we'll be there and be open to talk to them. But right now, it's like, I just want them to have a normal life, do what they got to do, and whenever happens, whatever happens in their lives, they'll know who to come to and ask the questions.
Exactly. That was the whole point of my entire life here doing what I've done, is so that my boys could have a normal life. I didn't want them to have to deal with it the way I did. But I mean, there's some of it you can't stop. Like, whatever happened with my granddaughter there, I had no control
Right.
over that. But at least she
Yep.
knows. She
Right.
she can tell me. She knows that if she wants to talk about something later, that Nene's cool. So
Right.
that's what she calls me, Nene.
Yeah,
So
it's as much understanding as I have personally, and I don't know how you feel about this, but even I noticed that our youngest one, sometimes he'll, like, out of nowhere, he'll be, of course they're almost like in this ADD stage, but there's a specific type of look where he like stops, turns around and looks at something, and we're asking like, Orion, what is it? And he'll just kind of like keep looking at it, keep looking, and then he'll move on, and it's like these, just on very occasion, he doesn't do it all the time, and I thought about this. It's like, with as much as I have experience and whatever also my wife went through, I would still find it hard knowing that my son would then kind of have to go through the similar process, because there's this dad in me that, no matter how much understanding I have, no matter how much I know that from personal experience, that it's upon agreement, that nothing is done against the will. At different times, different things will be happening to prep you for your next stage in life. I mean, it happened to me when I was a kid, and it's wouldn't be a surprise for my children to happen. But I still can't help it that I'm just like, I almost want to just be this protective, dad, and just be like, no, wait till they're adults, then interact with them, that kind of thing, because I
yep.
don't know why. It's just I just still feel protected of them, even though there's nothing to be afraid of. And in no
Right.
point, and has there ever been something that that was a true danger where for me to be perceived, where I say I need to protect my children of this.
Well, look, I'm 62 years old, and I've been having weird stuff happen to me almost my entire life, and I managed to live this long. And you know, if if they were gonna hurt us intentionally or eat us, I would have been like, I always say, I
Right.
would have been Thanksgiving dinner for an entire family.
Right.
I mean,
Right.
when I'm here, I'm healthy, I'm alive, so you know But yeah, early on in my awakening and my realization of what was going on, I mean, I was terrified and I did have a lot of fear and anxiety. That first year after the June 30 '83 thing, I pretty much stayed up every night and stayed up all night long and would sit in a chair between my two little boys' bed. They were, like maybe 3 and 4 years old, and we were living with my mom and dad. Thank God, because I pretty much had a nervous breakdown for that period of time. And like I said, I'd be up all night, like I was just waiting and watching and guarding my children. And then I could sleep when the sun came up and other people in the house were up and awake. Then I would fall asleep, out of exhaustion. Thank God that I was able to overcome that. Thank God for my parents, because I don't know what I'd done without them, but so yeah, my mama bear instincts were in high
Right.
mode for a long, long time. And my boys are good. They're in their 40s. They're both productive members of society, and they're good kids. They're good men. So I did something right, and whatever they have, as far as this paranormal UFO experience goes, they always know they can come to me and talk to me if they need to. So
Right. Right.
otherwise, I got to just trust them. They know how to live their lives. They're grown ass men. I would say to
Right.
them.
Right. Yeah, just
So,
knowing, just that part of knowing that they can come to you, and just I think that's all they really need,
yeah,
when you think about
right.
it. So anyway, just thank you all very much for your questions. I'm just gonna keep on going down the list. Remember, you can also go on Telegram and, just like Kenny did, log in and ask a question of Debbie yourself. So just putting that out there. The other question, Deb, is from Fab22 again. Have you had telepathic, quote unquote, warming or warning that a communication was about to happen? Then it does happen with actual sighting the next 140 minutes or so. Does that make sense?
Well, this is what I can tell you. I'm not sure if I understand the question completely, but here I
Basically,
can tell
like,
you that.
have you had an inkling? I think it wants to say like that there's something come in telepathically, and then within like in the next
Yes.
2 hours, you have an actual experience.
Yeah, it's been, there were a couple times when it was maybe like telepathically. I was in bed, but I wasn't asleep yet, and it kind of came into my mind. But then there's been a few times I recall where, prior to something weird happening, there I would hear a sound, like some kind of weird tone. It would almost be more than hear it, almost feel it, I've had that experience a few times. And
Right.
then, but, and then later on in life, the only contact that I had at all was maybe telepathic in some way, or, like my consciousness, went somewhere else, not my body, if that makes any sense.
Right. It does. Okay. Sorry, I'm just doing some multitasking.
The storm is
here.
breaking up and it's going away, just like I told it to. So yeah.
Good. Good. I'm glad. That's the case. I'm sorry. One of the questions I don't understand. I think it was a compliment. I still don't get it. I think they're trying. I think it's Nick again trying to say. Oh, I think it's something like you don't look anything near the age you mentioned.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Genetics.
Right.
I don't even know what that comment meant there, genetics.
Right. So
Clean living.
Michael Schumann asks, Deb, do you think of what do you think of Stephen Greer's CE5 protocols? Do you think we should be making contact with ETs or not? Are they benevolent or malevolent?
Well, my opinion is there are probably as many different agendas as there are life forms. I mean, look at the multitude of different agendas just here on this planet with humans. So I think that there are some malevolent, if I could say that right, my mouth worked that way.
Yeah, I have difficulties with those words too. So malevolent and
Malevolent. I think there
yep.
are some malevolent entities out there. I think there are some benevolent, life forces, entities out there. I think they have different agendas. And as far as trying to contact them, I've never, now, well, I can't say never. I did go down to Pensacola Beach with the Gulf Breeze research team a few times, and we sat out on the beach and tried to call in Bubba. That's what they called the UFOs that were sighted down in Pensacola Beach back in the 90s. And we did have a blue light, a little round blue light that just like flew right between me and some other girl and whizzed around us. And there were multiple sightings that were videotaped of the weird happenings over the water out there. But nothing really ever happened after that. I personally don't want, I don't know, maybe it's because I don't need to call them in. I've been trying to shoo them off for the last 40 years. I don't really know why anybody would want to do that. But I can't even say that now. I mean, I'm curious now. I'm being curious to see if it could actually be done. I would be curious. I wouldn't be afraid anymore. Back, 30 years ago, if you'd asked me that question, I'd be like, what the hell's wrong with you? Why would you want to ever do that? But now I can kind of see it, I'm curious enough and not as afraid. So yeah, I probably would try it. I don't know whether Dr. Greer's, the way he does it is the right way or the only way. I don't really particularly think you need a whole big group of people. I think one will do. So,
Right.
I mean, I think it's a matter of opinion. And my opinion is I don't really have a need for any of that, but
So,
whatever rocks your boat.
right. So Deb, the next question is from Star Brothers. Says, does Deborah think there's a real galactic federation of light?
I don't know. I can't say whether I think there is or not. Like I said, I'm open-minded. And I have more questions than answers on most of my own things. So I don't know. I guess anything's possible. I don't know.
Right. So the next one is from Pauline. Can I ask Deborah's thoughts on the belief that the ETs could be us humans from the future? Thanks.
Oh, yeah. That's something I've thought about a lot in the last few years. I mean, I've seen things that have led me to feel or to believe that that's perhaps the way it actually is. I mean, yeah, as a matter of fact, I think that's makes one of the most logical things sense-wise, because I feel like the things that I've had experience with didn't particularly come from out there, but maybe were from some other dimension or some other extra, another universe or in another dimension or something, or from the future. Like I said, that thing that I saw in my mom and dad's backyard that night, that little egg-shaped craft, even six small people couldn't get in that and fly to another universe, out here in space. There's no way. So what was that thing? It wasn't a spacecraft as we know it. Was it some kind of portal to some other dimension, or was it a time machine that came from the future and back? I don't know. But yeah, I think that's very possible. I think it makes more sense than some of the other theories.
Right. It looks like I had skipped a question from previously, but I guess it's never too late to ask it. This was from Tammy asking, what did the six little look like? I guess you mentioned the ones you witnessed.
Yeah, well, that was very difficult to actually see a lot of detail because by the time the light was so bright, faded, and I could see movement, and I could figure there were six figures out there. I said originally they kind of looked bullet shaped because they were like their heads were bigger, and then they got real narrow, kind of narrowed down. But and when they moved, they didn't really walk. It was more like a slide or a glide. It was very smooth. Um, but I couldn't see a lot of detail at the time because my eyes were just totally blown out. And it was like, have you ever gotten your picture taken with the old fashioned flash bulbs and
Yes.
didn't blink? Yeah, and then you're like, I can't see anything. They're just like white spots all over your vision. That's the way my eyes were for that part of time. And, like I said, the next morning I woke up, they were swelled shut. They were blasted. But yes, I did. They were small, maybe the size, maybe the height of a 7 or an 8-year-old kid. They moved very smoothly in a kind of a gliding motion. They had big heads and their bodies were small. And that's pretty much all the detail I could give you at that, from that.
Okay. Yeah, for those of you in chat, if you could please put 3 little stars before your question, so it pops out at me. Thankfully, the chat I have kind of slows things down, so I can kind of still read things that pop out at me, even though it doesn't look like it is a question. But just to make it easier on me, please just 3 stars and then your question. That way, I know it's a direct question for Deb. So Deb, I have Nathan on Telegram that would like to ask you a question. So Nathan, you are unmuted. Unmute yourself and please ask your question.
Yes. Hello, Deborah. Hello, Adnan. Thanks for having me on.
Hey.
Hi.
So I have a question. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, it's a very popular book. It's Jacques Vallée's book, Passport to Magonia. And,
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Okay. Like the premise of it is it's very old. It's been around, for a while, but premise of it is that, the ETs that we're experiencing today were the same as the fairies and the goblins and all the folklore of yesteryear. Graham Hancock went into way further detail in his book called Supernatural, and I was like on that it's that a lot of these experiences are all very closely tied together, like psychedelic experiences, out of body experiences. All of them are all touching on the same sort of experiences. I'm wondering, from your personal experience, do you feel like that is there's a lot of truth to that, and how do you what experiences have you had that may allude to that, or
Oh,
do you
I can't, it's hard for me to answer that because I haven't read that book. So I don't really know fully, what he all
I think
talks
what he's
about.
trying to say is that because it's basically that it's all, Nathan, would you say that it's all kind of interconnected? Is that what you're
it's all
trying to get
very
at?
interconnected. Like even from like the stories that we have from hundreds of years ago about where they called them fairy rings back in the day, and now they're crop circles. They have descriptions of different fairies and stuff being very nimble people and stuff like that. I was just wondering if and then there's also, like I said, Jacques Vallée sticks with that, but basically the nuts and bolts more stuff like that you can prove, but then Graham Hancock in his book Supernatural goes into a lot more detail and pulls in topics like NDEs, near-death experiences, and stuff, and the out-of-body experiences. I was wondering if any of your experiences would sort of like make it help us confirm that is true. Like, do you have any?
Okay.
So you're
Yeah,
thinking
Okay.
I had
Thank you for the
I had a
question, Nathan.
near-death experience when I gave birth to my son. So I know about that, and I've also had a couple of times when I feel like I had an out-of-body experience. One of them when I was really little, like maybe 5 or 6 years old. I feel like I got involved with the paranormal because I felt like there was a connection between some of the things people report in paranormal and a connection between one thing and similarities with some things that people report during UFO experiences or abduction experiences. And I felt like, there was some connection, some bigger picture that I'm not seeing, that connects everything. And look at my family and our we've not just had the UFO and alien like experience, but also the out of body, the near death experience for myself, and all kinds of weird paranormal things, and even things within myself. Like when I was a kid, I was polishing the brass handles on my mom's, cabinets in her kitchen, and they started to bend in my hand. And I wasn't even doing anything to them. And when my sister tried to bend them back, she couldn't bend them back. And I didn't even know how I did it. Of course, I got in trouble. So, I mean, there's just all kinds of weird stuff like that. I think it's all connected, and I agree with that. I don't think that, I think that there's a grain of truth in all the fables and all the things that people reported over the years with even way back, like, leprechauns and things like that people have seen. I think that they're seeing things through their eyes and their society, and that's how they describe it. But I think there's a grain of truth in all those little stories that we think are myths and things. I think there's something true with them, and that they. Sorry, I'm being distracted now. People are blowing my phone up with this weather.
Oh no!
So, I mean, I hope you understand what I was trying to say. And I have had a near-death experience, which impacted me deeply. So.
Right. Okay. Sorry, I'm also multitasking and typing with one arm, and all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So in a good way, maybe I need to get my younger son to get more interested in technology in this way, so I could make him my assistant or something.
I
So
always tease my
Michael,
kid. I said, that's why I had kids, so you could fix my computer.
right. Michael J. Schumann is asking, Deb, of the paranormal experiences you've had, were they ghostly apparitions and or poltergeist activity? How many times or how often did this occur?
Shortly after the June 30, 83 incident, it really kicked it up several notches at my mom's house. And so much so we thought mom's house was haunted. But then when we all moved away and things still happened in our places, we realized it wasn't the house that was haunted, it was us. Haunted is a silly word, but I recorded EVPs in my house, after I moved out. My mom, my sister, and I were sitting at the kitchen table one afternoon. We all smoked at the time and had that big heavy amber glass ashtray sitting in the middle of the kitchen table. And as I reached over to flip my cigarette in it, that ashtray snapped in half with the loud thump. And one side slid to one end of the table, one side slid to the other, and all the cigarette butts and ashes just stayed in the middle of the table. And my mom's first reaction was, "Oh my God, that ashtray was expensive." And my older sister was like, "I'm out of here, see ya." And she got up and left. And I'm like, "That is so cool. Did I do that?" I mean, but to me, and Mom was sitting down this was the tri-level, so she was down in the lower part watching TV. There were two swag lamps there. And just after she got up to go upstairs, the light bulb in one of those swag lamps shattered, dropped down. She said her eyes were right on it. All the glass dropped down right below the opening of the swag and shot across the couch where she had just gotten up. Just that one light bulb. The one time my mom, myself, and my two kids were in the living room watching television. And all of a sudden, there was this immense green flash in the living room. And I looked up. And as I looked up, I saw about this far away from my mom's head, this intense green ball of light. At the time I looked up, and the whole room was filled with green, the television turned off, the phone rang, and I saw my mom and my kids were all like this. And I happened to look up. I mean, what is that? You know, what is that even? And it was just an incandescent light bulb. There wasn't anything special about it. And the light bulb in the lamp shattered. But the green ball of light was in the middle of the room more. It wasn't near the lamp. It was closer actually to my mom's head than it was the lamp. I've been in the room, I've been in the house there where the stereo would start turning on and off by itself. TV would turn on and off by itself. You'd hear little footsteps, like 2 or 3 little kids running through the upstairs part while you're down folding laundry, and you know you're in the house alone. One time there was a copper pipe that was running through the rafters in the basement, and it wasn't connected to anything, but it was up there. Daddy just left it up in. This copper pipe was tied in a knot one day when we went down there. One time my sister and her boyfriend were down there making out in the basement where the pool table was, and there was this there was like a metal cabinet. The doors didn't stay closed, so my dad had like a coat hanger wire wrapped around him to hold the doors closed. And while Sherry and her boyfriend were down there making out, this door somehow unwrapped the wire and burst open. It scared the hell out of them. They came running upstairs screaming bloody murder. So that's the kind of stuff that went on in that house on a daily basis, sometimes for weeks at a time. Then it would fade a little bit, get calm, and then it would start back up again. And that's the way it's been my whole life, stuff like that.
Oh, wow, that's quite something.
Yeah, that's
More-timer,
crazy stuff.
right. More-timer James is asking, if Debbie could change her past and have no contact, would she?
No. And I'll tell you why. As crazy as it sounds, you know, the way life has been and as traumatic as it been, every single thing that I've been through from my earliest memories, everything, not just the UFO experiences or paranormal experiences, but all the traumatic things in my life have all made me who I am now. And I feel have contributed to elevating me in a spiritual and intellectual way. For one thing, had I not had all these crazy experiences, I would have never met Bud Hopkins. And had I not met him, there is nothing about my life today that would be even remotely recognizable. I wouldn't have moved to where I live now. I wouldn't have met my late husband, wouldn't have met my current husband, wouldn't have had any of the jobs I've had. My kids wouldn't have been in the schools where they were. They wouldn't have met their spouse. I wouldn't have my granddaughter. I mean, there is absolutely nothing about my life that would be even remotely recognizable. And I like my life that I worked hard for, you know, and I like where I am at emotionally and spiritually right now. I mean, I have room to grow. Don't get me wrong. I'll be growing and changing until the day I check out. And so, no, had I not had the life that I've had, I wouldn't have the life I have now. So, no, I would not change it.
For a second there, I thought I misunderstood it when you first said no, meaning like, no, you wouldn't have those experiences. But then the more you explained, I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Got it. So Nathan had another question. And for those that would like to talk to Deb, simply download Telegram, log into the UFO Hub group. You'll see the voice chat there, and you can ask the question yourself. Otherwise, you can just also log into Telegram just to listen. Only when you raise your hand, there's a button that says tap to speak. That's when I'll know that you're interested. Otherwise, I know you're just there to use your phone to listen to this conversation right now. So yeah, Nathan, you are unmuted, and please go ahead and mute yourself and ask a question again.
Yes, hi. Yeah, I had a couple questions actually, but the first one actually goes right into what you were just saying. I was curious, um, did you feel during all this whole process that you were being guided or had a guide, or like you felt like you had a higher purpose to serve, and you just like weren't comfortable unless you were pursuing that higher purpose, that passion, or and the guide that question?
Um, when I first became more aware of things when I was younger in my 20s, I had a lot of fear and anxiety. Um, but as I got older, I and became more aware. Yeah, I did feel as though I have a purpose and have been guided. There's been many times in my life when I've gone and done things that I would not normally do, but it was it was a compulsion to do this that I couldn't fight, as if I was being pushed in that direction or led in that direction, pushed to go do this or go speak there. I didn't really want to go and speak there, but I did because maybe there was someone there who needed to hear something I was saying, and that was my purpose. And so I started to realize it and recognize it more as I got older, and I started to pay attention and listen and follow it. And I learned that if I followed it and trusted it, it would never lead me wrong. And, you know, my felt like my purpose now is to help people wake up, uh, to realize there's more to life than what your little blinders let you see, going all around you. I feel like sometimes I call myself the Johnny Appleseed, where I may only plant a little seed in somebody's mind, but it'll take off and grow and send them on their journey, you know, because I feel like we're all connected. And I do feel as though I've been protected. There's been times when I feel as if um, I've dodged a bullet. There's been several times in my life when I should have been dead. Literally, tornado was one of them. How many people do you know crawl out from under a house with not a scratch on them? Um, so I do, and I have felt like I've had some protection along the way, some help along the way. Yeah, definitely. I
Okay.
feel like I have some
Wow.
higher
Nathan,
calling.
Oh yes, that
did you?
very much answered my question. Thank you very much. I think
Okay.
I feel that same way, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in this community that do feel like that, like they were being pushed
Yes,
towards a
there
higher
are
purpose, towards more.
thousands of us, hundreds of thousands of us, trust me, out there like that. Maybe more.
Okay. Thank you, Nathan. I
Very good to
appreciate
know.
it.
Well, I would just
Okay. Oh, I cut him off. I want to get to Dudley. Dudley raised his hand earlier. Dudley, you're unmuted, and please go ahead and ask your question. You might have to press on the unmute button if you want to speak.
Hello.
Yes, go
Hi.
ahead.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Um, First question. Um, have you heard of sleep paralysis?
Sleep paralysis? Yes, I've heard of it. I think
Do
that's
you
a
think?
plausible explanation for some things.
Okay. Um, the reason why I asked is because I've had similar um, altercations like you,
Hmm.
um, where I was either sitting down, hanging out with some friends, playing cards, could be doing anything, and then all of a sudden I get a weird taste in my mouth, like a metallic taste.
Hmm.
Um, I'll hear and feel like a vibrating feeling and like a buzzing.
Hmm.
Then all of a sudden I won't be able to move or scream or talk or do anything. Um, Usually when that happens, one time when it did happen, I seen a black hole appear in my ceiling, which I find weird, and I didn't know what to do. I had the feeling of terror.
Yeah.
So, have you ever felt that the feeling of terror? And just to add on to that, basically, when it happened, I called the name of Jesus, I just kept on saying Jesus, 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 and and then as soon as I said Jesus, I felt like a feeling of relief, and it went away. And another altercation. Oh, I have a couple, so I don't know how much time I actually have
Well,
to
Dudley, well, this is just
explain
mainly to
and
ask
compare.
her a question. But yeah, no, definitely for like on
Yeah,
Wednesdays,
pretty much a question. I
yeah.
just wanted to pretty much just compare my experiences with hers and basically get a read of her experience, and so I can pretty much figure out what the hell happened to me.
So the first one was about the metallic taste, and second one regarding if she also had a similar experience where you said a black hole sort of appeared
Yes,
above your head. Is that what you said?
and also yes, and another incident where the same thing happened, where I felt the numb feeling. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream, couldn't talk. Then next thing you know, like I see this. Next thing you know, I'm like literally out of my body, which is really weird. I know my body's to the left of me, and I'm scared to look at my body. But I know I see my body, I'm gonna freak out. So I try not to look at it. But I've always had lucid situations like this, so I was kind of trained not to be scared. But in some ways, I will always be scared, which is kind of weird. So I look out the window, and I see this cat in the distance, which is it's just a cat, and I'm lucid, and I know that I'm lucid. And I look at the cat. The cat sees me, and it starts walking towards me. As it walks towards me, it grows in size, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then it transforms from a cat to a half cat, half human being. And I lunged at it. I don't know what my instincts made me lunge at it, but I lunged at it, and when I grabbed it, I was paralyzed instantly. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream, I couldn't yell. So all I did was just think the name of Jesus, and then I kept on thinking it, and then I tried to speak, and then the more I thought the name Jesus, the stronger I grew, and I was able to actually speak his name. And when I spoke his name, it screamed and yelled. It was a weird situation. So, have you ever experienced anything like that? And have you ever thought about calling the name of Jesus when you experience your
Okay,
experiences?
Dudley, thank you for that. Just real quick, Deb, please do call in on Wednesdays when I have open lines and love to talk to you some more. But at least thank you for sharing so far what you have. So I'm going to mute you again and thank you again for your questions.
Well, I've definitely
Okay, go ahead.
felt that terror. I know what that feels like for sure, multiple times. I don't know that I particularly called out the name of Jesus other than to, you know, to, you know, to say, holy Jesus, but not in a direct way like that. But I do understand that terror. Definitely. I don't have any experiences like the hole and things, the other things. Just because I don't have them, that doesn't mean much. I do. I do know. I do know a little bit about sleep paralysis, and it's my understanding that sleep paralysis happens when you're uh, in bed about ready to fall asleep or about ready to wake up. I don't necessarily know that it happens, while you're awake and sitting up in a chair with friends. So I'm not sure about that. Um, I do think sleep paralysis can explain some things people report. I don't question that at all. And but that's not the answer for everything. I'm here to tell you. Um, I think it's an easy thing for people to just kind of lump it all in one, pile so they don't have to deal with it, but that's not correct. And but yeah, I do understand the fear. And I do understand that terror. It is very hard to live with. And I mean, if calling out for protection from Jesus helps, then by all means continue to do it. Like I said, I don't. I do recognize some of those things, but there's plenty of people out there with all kinds of stories, and I'm sure there's lots of other people out there who've had experiences similar to yours. So it's good that you talk about them and you want to share them. I think that's a healthy thing to do.
Yeah, Deb, on Wednesdays, I usually have open lines, and usually using Telegram, people will call in and simply share their stories. And I kind of
That's
treat
cool.
it like an online hanging out, because I know usually I would go in person to meet and all these other things, but with all the different restrictions, and just generally where I live, it's very difficult for me to do that, no matter what's going on out there in the world. So I thought just
Yeah,
to open that up and to kind of do this on an open world stage, so to say. And so, yeah, on Wednesdays at 7, do open lines all
that's
the time.
cool.
So I hope that Dudley would call in and share his stories. Then let's pass Wednesday. I was so busy, I had a lot of stuff going on that I had to skip, and so today was the first time back this week for me. But the other question, actually, I want to ask you: are you good with more questions, or what do you feel like
I'm
energy
fine.
wise? You good?
I'm fine.
Okay.
And the storms
Yeah,
are
just
all
if I
kind
if
of up
I'm if
north.
I've
So
asked too much of your time, please do tell me. Okay.
no, you know, I
Okay.
I enjoy talking with you always. No, no,
Well, thank you. I'm
no
sure
worries.
everyone else watching and wanting to ask questions certainly appreciates it, Deb.
Oh, I
This one is
appreciate
from.
everybody asking and wanting to talk to me. I really appreciate it. I don't get to talk about this stuff that much over here where I'm at in the middle of nowhere. So I appreciate you and I appreciate everybody who comes to listen to me. I appreciate it. I'm grateful
Thank you.
for the support.
The next question is from Tammy. As in Deb's experience with paranormal, what does she think orbs are? Souls, us in energy form?
You know,
Basically,
as a
did
paranormal,
you understand that question?
yes, I did. As a
Okay,
paranormal
good. Yeah.
investigator, I'm taught early on in it that orbs are dust or moisture or pollen or bugs or whatever. And I think in probably some cases that is true. But having said that, and having been out on investigations and having had these things come in my house out of the blue, I do feel that some orbs are actually something other than dust or moisture or pollen. Um, I actually have a photograph of an orb that I took. I have two photographs. One was a picture I took in my mom and dad's living room, and another one was I can't even remember where the other one was, but so I think, and these orbs definitely were different. In one of them, you can actually see a face of what looks like a gray alien head. It's pretty clear. It's not that, my mind turned it into that, like cloud watching. I can't remember that word, but um, so much so that I show it when I give talks, and uh, I do believe that some orbs that people see are maybe spirits of people that were here at one time. I think sometimes they're some other kind of energetic life form that never really lived here, and I think there's life forms out there, and that live right here with us that are energy, and I think sometimes we can see them, and I think that's what some of those orbs are. So but that's just my opinion.
Okay, thank you for that. So the next one is from Fab22. Says, I don't. I'd like to know your views on mantis. In all interactions I had, the mantis are the most mind control, fear induced. Yet everyone says they are okay and benevolent, etc.
I really don't have a lot of knowledge about them because I've never, that I recall, interacted with that type. My sister, however, has, and but I don't think she felt that it was any particularly threatening. Um, but I really can't answer that question very well because I don't really know much about them. So
Right, okay.
sorry.
The next question is from Star Brother. Did Deborah say she had some EVP session experiences?
Oh yeah, EVPs are my favorite. I started to become fascinated with them 30 years ago, and I did an experiment with my nephew in my kitchen one day, and we recorded a couple of spectacularly clear EVPs. One was of an old man, and he said, "Are the spirits listening?" And right behind him immediately was the sound of like a child's voice that said, "Can I listen too?" And I had this little epiphany. As soon as I heard that, I'm like, "Oh my God." I looked at my nephew and said, "We're the spirits somewhere else, and someone's trying to listen to us." My nephew's like, "Wow, that's deep." But I mean, I really felt that. And from that point, I was hooked. And when I got involved with paranormal groups, EVPs were kind of my thing. They used to call me the antenna because it seemed like my recorder would pick up. We could have 3 recorders in a room, and mine would be the one that had all the good stuff on it. I've gotten one time I got an EVP there with this when I was with this group in Indy. They were a great group of people, and very professional. We were doing a private home, and the people that owned the home had a dog, and no one was in the house. We had our base station set up out in the garage. There was no one in the house. Had all our equipment everywhere. EVP, my recorder, my little recorder sitting on the end table or the coffee table. Another recorder, camera that had voice record on it as well in that room. The dog walks by the coffee table where my little hand recorder is, and clear as day, it was like this kid was in the living room and leaned into the mic and said, "Hi, Ginger." And the dog's name was Ginger. And there were no little children, no little girls in this family. As a matter of fact, one of their complaints was that they were seeing a little girl running up and down the halls. I thought I would lose my mind. I was so excited over that EVP. I've gotten many really, really good ones over the years. I haven't done it for a long time. I kind of miss it. I don't know why I'm so attracted to those things. I just think they're fascinating, and I love it when I get a good one.
You should put together like a compilation of all the stuff that you have that you consider is really great, and maybe something to post publicly.
Yeah, my husband is my webmaster, and he's currently updating and building my website, which was dormant for a long time. And now with the book coming out and everything, this is a way that people can contact me directly. And
and your
I hope
website is
that
also in the description below for any of those that want to contact
Yes.
Deb as well.
Yeah, you can
Oh, yeah, and
email me
also
through
all
that.
the links to I'm sorry, Deb, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was going to say all
No,
the
no.
links of your previous books and the new one, both Barnes and Noble and Amazon link is all in the description below. So please do check it out. I try to just pack descriptions with as much information as possible. So very rarely will I have a speaker that is not accessible to the public. So please take advantage of just visit the site, check out the different books, and take advantage of everything that Deb has to offer.
Right. Send me an email. I do my best to answer every single email that I get, even however briefly. I just appreciate the support, and I appreciate that people want to, share it with me, and it's kind of like why I'm here. So, yeah.
Right. Deb, Tammy's asking, can Deb tell us about the humanoids she spoke of?
The human interaction I had
Humanoids,
during
yeah.
these weird events. Yeah, they look human. I wouldn't just say humanoid. I would go so far as to say that if you pass one of them in the grocery store at Walmart, you wouldn't look at them twice. They were very attractive. I mean, like I would call, even the men were beautiful, just beautiful.
So you would look
human.
at them twice.
Well, I would, but not for the reasons you might think. And then the one time when, I had some what appeared to be medical things done to me, it was definitely humans. And I remember this old guy who would, if he was still alive, he'd probably be in his 90s now. I called him the doctor, and he was a older, heavy-set, white-haired guy with reddish face and a W.C. Fields nose, a very deep voice with a very thick Southern drawl, but human. So, And then the one time I had a dream, this guy came and was talking to me, and he looked human, and he was very, handsome, but and he had big blue eyes, but one pupil was diamond shaped, and it moved when he talked to me. And I said, "Are you talking to me through your eye?" And he kind of looked at me and funny and said, "You don't remember. You can do this too. And I'm like, no, I don't remember. And the next morning when I woke up, I was covered in a blanket that I don't remember covering myself with, but I do remember telling him in the dream that I was cold. So go figure. They all have blonde
Okay.
hair, except that there was
Oh,
I
no
called them the
exceptions?
twins. There was two exceptions. I called them the twins, and they had very, very dark hair and very dark brown eyes, and they looked like identical twins. But the rest of them were all, except the old guy, were all like blonde-haired, blue-eyed people.
Okay. Well, Deb, I haven't had I guess everyone asked all the questions they wanted to ask. As soon as I say that, Michael comes through one. I was just going to say I didn't have any other questions to ask if you wanted to cover certain subjects, but one came through from Michael's saying, were they blonde Nordic types? If you're familiar with those.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. I mean, if you blonde Nordic people are tall, blonde, and attractive, yeah, I could say
Okay.
that.
Right.
I wouldn't
Well,
think of, I didn't think about them that way at the time, but yeah.
right. Okay, I guess let's finish up with Nathan. Nathan is in on Telegram, and I guess we'll finish up with the voice question. Nathan, you're unmuted. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing with us your near-death experience story,
Oh no, I don't
like what you
mind.
experienced.
Oh, that's yeah.
I was
Go
very
ahead.
young. I
Thank you,
was
Nathan.
pregnant with, thank you. Yeah, I was pregnant with my son, my oldest son. And I I was actually not due for 7 weeks, but I went into a coma. I developed preeclampsia that went into eclampsia, and I was in a kind of semi-comatose state. My kidneys were failing, my liver was failing. I was dying. And so they had to make a choice between, me dying and the baby dying, or, they had to take, the only cure for me to save my life was to have the baby. So they took me in for an emergency C-section. And during the C-section, I guess they must have given me as little anesthetic and whatever that paralyzing stuff is they'd give you, because I remembered feeling them cut me open, but I couldn't move and I couldn't tell anybody. But it was not a slice like you think. It was a pinch and a pull and a pinch and a pull, and it was like fire, like absolute fire, as they cut me open to take out my baby. And I was an up and down cut, like back, this was 42 years ago. They cut you open like a gutted fish. But I remembered hearing them talking in there. And I also remember the doctor talked about Geist Reservoir and sailboats while they were cutting me open. Somebody mentioned something about that. But I could hear everything, but I was just paralyzed. I couldn't move. It was like I was awake, but not, it was weird. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't breathe. And I could not breathe, but I couldn't get anybody's attention. I was trying desperately to shake my legs to get somebody's attention to tell them I couldn't breathe. And then all of a sudden, their voices sounded like they started to go farther and farther and farther away, like I was going far and far away from them. They were getting quieter and quieter. And then all of a sudden, it was I could almost hear and feel, it was like a whoomp feeling, and I literally disconnected from my body, and then I was in blackness, total blackness. I couldn't see my hands or feet or anything. I could barely hear their talking, but I was trapped in this black box, and I was pounding on the wall of this black box with my fists, and I was screaming at the tops of my lungs, I'm not dead. Let me out of here. Let me out. I'm not dead. And somehow I managed to shake my legs, and when I did, I felt the strap go down around my leg, and I kind of connected back with my body a little bit. And then I heard a voice, and it was a woman's voice, and at first I thought it was an angel, but in retrospect, I think it may have been a nurse whisper in my ear, you can't leave yet. You have a baby that needs his mother. You can't leave yet. And as soon as I heard those words, bam, I connected right back up on this body, and the voices got louder and louder, and there was just screaming and chaos going on, hollering back and forth. And they had taken me off the table, and all of a sudden I felt like I couldn't breathe again. And I shook my legs, and the screaming got loud. And then I think they might have intubated me because I felt like all of a sudden the air was coming in my lungs, and it felt so good. It was like I was thirsty and I was drinking it in. I was gulping this air in all of a sudden. And it wasn't until after the surgery was over. I mean, it was very traumatic for me to remember being cut open and everything. But I told the doctor, I heard you talking about sailboats. And he's like, what? And I said, yeah. I said, I felt you cut me open, and I heard you talk about sailboats. And he just looked at me like I was crazy. He never confirmed nor denied any of it. And I told him what had happened, you know, and that's when I found out I had coded twice. They had to revive me twice before they even took me out of there, out of the delivery room. And then it was amazing because, and remember, this was 42 years ago. 7 days later, I went home, and my baby went with me, even though he was almost 7 weeks premature. He didn't have any fingernails yet. He had long white hair still all over him, just little dents where his fingernails would grow in, and his ears were still rolled up and folded up, and he looked like a little peanut. They called him Peanut in NICU. His lungs were completely developed, and he was he weighed 5 pounds and was 21 inches long, even though he was so early. But he had zero body fat. He couldn't keep his body, temperature up. That was his only problem. But yeah, I had that. When I had Jesus and all the angels and people that I knew that were dead.
Deb, hold on. I'm sorry. You broke up there for a second. Say that last 6 seconds again, please.
I didn't have the typical near-death experience where people see the tunnel of light and Jesus and all the angels and people they knew who were alive that are now dead come to get them. But I think that's because I didn't leave my body. And I did my body because of that baby. Because I might not have remembered when I disconnected and wanted out, because I wanted out of that body. I wanted out until she reminded me I had a baby, and that was like, oh no, I ain't going nowhere. So, but that was my near-death experience.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. It's your connection for some reason was dropping quite a bit, but we could hear what you were trying to say. So maybe that's a cue.
Well,
we
got storms coming through here, so maybe it's that.
Right. Yeah, very well be. Well, Debbie, thank you very much again. I'm really happy that you were able to come on again, and as you know, you're always welcome. And hopefully in the future we'll do this again sometime. And so
thanks for asking me.
Yeah, thank you very much for again taking the time, and I appreciate everyone watching and asking the questions and making this interesting, because it's as much of interaction as it is just coming to listen to somebody, because I love to listen to people, but if I have a chance to ask, you kind of learn more that way. And so I'm glad that people took the opportunities to go to Telegram and to even on chat ask the questions, and it just makes it more interactive. And sometimes, as much as I understand about the different subjects, I sometimes don't know to ask all the questions, and by somebody having their question fulfilled and hopefully it enriches their experience that much more, and gives them that next little breadcrumb that they need to move forward with whatever else that they're learning about and researching. So
yeah.
Okay, well, everyone, thank you again. Debbie, I'm going to sign off you soon, so please sit tight. Don't disconnect on me yet. And so please, everyone else that's been watching, please log in next week at 7 p.m. I will be live streaming again on all the all the 3 platforms that I have, which is YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and of course, voice only over Telegram. And so during that time is open lines and basically just listen to your calls. Dudley, I believe, was starting to share some of his experiences. I hope he comes back on Wednesday and gets to share that. I love to hear new stories and what people have experienced, and sometimes there could be some correlation with your experiences and what someone else also had experienced. So yeah, I'm sorry I had to cancel this past Wednesday. I really had a lot on my hands because I was building a bed frame for our 3-year-old. At the same time, I was flushing the coolant out of the one of the vehicles that we were messing with, and the radiator had a crack, so I had to get that fixed. I had to do it myself, basically. So anyway, I had a full day, and I was like, the last thing that I could really concentrate on and give all my full attention on would be this, and I don't want to do that disservice to everyone. I'd rather be refreshed and ready and here to listen. So again, Debbie, thank you very much. Everyone else watching, thank you. And so tune in on Wednesday. And of course, we're going to have another guest on Friday as well. So have a good weekend. Have a good day wherever you are, and take care.